back to another To The Point podcast. Everybody's doing well on this beautiful Tuesday here in New Brunswick. Another close to 40-degree day. Hope everybody is staying hydrated, but also enjoying the nice temperatures because, as we know, New Brunswick, it comes and goes rather quickly, and it'll be 14 Saturday. So enjoy it while you can. Shay, obviously you're in St. John's. That's a little bit different climate. Are you actually getting good weather up there, or is it more of a Chernobyl type environment in St. John, New Brunswick?
Oh, the old subtle dig right off the bat, eh? I'll let you know that it is a beautiful day here in St. John, New Brunswick, not St. John's, Newfoundland for some of our listeners.
Yeah.
No, it's been good. It's been a good week, but you're right. It'll be 40 all week, and then the minute it hits Saturday evening, it'll be like a -5 wind chill. I don't understand our weather, but we're blessed to be here.
Yeah, no, for early June to get this kind of weather, I'm never going to complain. Working today, hearing people at the store complain about the weather, I wanted to drop kick them, but nevertheless,
people need something to complain about, eh? It's either it's too cold, it's too warm, or it's not warm or not cold enough. It's unbelievable.
Just give it a rest. But
Exactly.
You complain about COVID or something else like I do on the podcast and rant about that for 15 minutes. Just do that. But no, obviously we're back tonight to talk about episodes 6 and 7 of season 2 of Breaking Bad. Episode 6, it's a sneaky good episode for me. I really enjoyed the rewatch, and I actually really enjoyed, obviously, the Walter storyline secondary, but I found that one really compelling as well.
Yeah, we get to see Jesse spend primarily the whole episode in one place, but so much goes on in that one place, and you have different emotions. You have, anger. You have, I guess, happiness at the end, you could say, and shock all at one place. But yeah, you're right. It's like we said in the last week's episode. You mentioned that there's two very interesting characters that meet that we meet in this episode, and it was like you said, it was a joy to rewatch it just a second time.
Yeah. So like you said, it starts with Jesse meeting Skinny P on the outskirts of town, and Skinny kind of gives him the address to these meth heads' house, and he's stoned or something because he can't spell and he doesn't really know where it is, but that's Skinny for you. And he has no real knowledge of them other than that the man's name is Spouge. And Jesse's like, what? Spouge? And he goes, yeah, it's Mr. Spouge. And Jesse clearly is a little freaked out because he's there to kill them, basically. And he, it shows the beginning episode, he doesn't even have the heart to kill, a spider. On the
good point. Actually, I never even put that into perspective. Like, he's just kind of sitting there playing with the spider, and he was gonna let it live, and Skinny P just comes up and kills it. But yeah, that's a great analogy for the episode, because he's supposed to be this cold-hearted killer now, and he can't even kill an animal, or can't kill a bug.
Yeah, it's crawling around, and even when it dies, he kind of has a reaction to it. He's kind of like upset. So that tells you where this is gonna go. But he goes to his car, smokes a bowl for courage, kind of Jim Leahy-esque with the liquor for courage, and starts to proceed towards the trap house, so to speak.
Yeah, and just a subtle recap for anyone maybe that was listening last time. Skinny P was the dealer who got robbed by these two, and Walter kind of basically told Jesse, we got to send a message to the other people so that something like this doesn't happen again, and basically put the gun down on the table and said, you're going to handle this. Mm-hmm. And this is what kind of let Jesse hear. So yeah, Jesse's clearly high out of his mind. He kind of walks up to this crack house, and starts taking a look, and then he knocks on the door, and then he kind of does that thing where you put your back towards right beside the door, and he's like, I gotta rob these guys. He's getting all amped. He's getting hamped up. He's practicing what he's gonna say. He's doing it a bunch of times, and then all of a sudden, someone comes from the front of the house.
Yeah, a woman delivering mail is there. He's got to hide the gun, and he's like, "Oh, good morning, beautiful day," and she goes, "You're blocking the box," and he has to move. Oh, sorry, and he's just so taken aback by her presence, and then, like you said, he's amping himself up, and he goes, "Give me my money, bitch. You got my money, bitch. I'm crazy. I'm crazy." And, nobody's coming to the door. So he goes and breaks a window, and gets into the home. And this house is trash. That's what I wrote in my notes. Garbage all over the floor. There's graffiti everywhere, old couches, like just bugs flying around. It's a disgusting environment.
Yeah, the second time watching this around, Juggy, I don't know about you, but I thought what a great, either they had to find a house that was already kind of banged up, or they had to find a house and they created, this
Right.
theme of this really trashed house with, inhabited by these drug users. And I thought, well, if they did that, like they deserve an A plus. Whoever's on production doing this. So I thought it was good because, yeah, like you said, you feel gross just watching it. Being Jesse, walking through this house, stepping over glass, bottles, beer cans, everything. So yeah, it's a gross scene. And Jesse kind of gets in there, checks the perimeter, and he doesn't find anything. So he sits down until he hears a noise.
Yeah, he hears a noise, so he's gonna get his gun ready, but out comes into the living room area is this little kid. And when I mean little, I'm saying like I thought 3 or 4. Shay, he's a little redheaded kid, but he's so clearly malnourished. He's really, really thin, really pale. He looks sick, and he's got it's some kind of something along his nose too. It looked like something that was untreated, and he doesn't freak out with Jesse's presence. He goes and turns on the TV, and Jesse's just kind of like, "What?" And he's asked the kid like, when are your folks getting home? And the kid says nothing. And Jesse's just kind of sitting there while this kid stares at the TV listening to an infomercial.
Yeah, and you're right. And Jesse's clear at this point is pretty frustrated because I think he was pretty amped just to get in here, get it done, and then maybe leave as quick as possible. But yeah, that's not the case. He just he starts talking to this kid, and he doesn't. The kid throughout the episode doesn't say anything. He clearly he's either mute or he just has no social skills, which is what I kind of thought was maybe the case, where he just doesn't know how to interact with people. Even a point where Jesse's like, can we watch something other than infomercials, because this is boring as hell. And he goes to change the channel, but he sees that the only channel they have in the house is infomercials.
Yeah, and the kid just doesn't care. He just sits there, stares, and like you said, he doesn't say anything. The only thing he does say is, "I'm hungry," and of course, we've seen this from Jesse with his little brother. He wants to be a really good person. He has a very maternal instinct, I think, and he cares for children. I think he wants to be a father, later in life, just through interactions we see on the show. But he goes and makes the kid a sandwich, and he feels for this kid, and he knows he's in such a tough environment with two parents that are crackheads, drug addicts, and this kid clearly is just being neglected his whole entire life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's a terrible, terrible situation. It's more real than I think people think, because obviously it happens throughout the world, in first world countries and in third world countries. So it's not something that's totally uncommon. But yeah, you're right. I thought the same thing. Jesse's got a soft spot for this kid in particular. And we see it throughout the show. He just kind of has, this would you say
maternal instinct?
Maternal, yeah, that's it. Maternal instinct for these younger people, and even animals sometimes, I guess. We'll see.
Yeah, no, true. And yeah, so we'll get back to that. At the other Walter, what's he doing? He's returning to work. He's gone through his treatment. He's in the clear, so to speak, for now. But he's at work. Skylar's at home, and she gets a message from Gretchen Schwartz. And for people that don't remember, she was Walter's kind of old flame. She's married to his old business partner at Grey Matter, and Skylar believes that Gretchen and Elliot are paying for Walter's cancer treatments, which obviously is not true. But so Gretchen leaves a message, and Skylar answers the phone, calls her back. And on the phone, she's kind of leans into it. She just says, "Thank you so much for paying for Walt's treatments. It saved us." And Gretchen is so taken aback by this news because she knows it's not the truth.
Yeah, this was bound to happen at some point. I mean, you got to think that Walter was going to get caught in this lie at some point during the show, just because, I mean, it's not like that. It's not like Skylar or Gretchen or Elliot don't have a friendship, maybe not a friendship, but they definitely have a mutual respect for each other. And especially after Skylar thinks that they're helping out, which they're clearly not. But yeah, you're right. You can see it on Gretchen's face as she's driving. And, Gretchen just says, "Hey, would it be okay if I stopped in this evening?" Because clearly she needs to know what's going on.
Yeah, and it's funny that she didn't rat him out right away. She wanted to go see Skylar. Maybe she clearly has a previous relationship with Walter, and there's clearly, I guess, mutual respect there, because normally I think you're just instinctually you'd be like, I'm not paying for treatment. You just own up to it. But she keeps his lie, a secret for the time being, at least.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll see it later. We'll see what happens later.
Yeah. So Walter's at work. He's happy to be back. He talks to the principal. She's really nice to him. And when he's leaving for the day, there's a poster on his windshield, and it says it's missing the poster, and it says, "My pants, I'm buck naked." And it's pretty funny. And clearly the kids are. I don't think he's the most popular teacher because he's kind of a hard ass. So clearly some student is poking fun at a teacher they don't really enjoy.
Yeah, and he's driving Flynn home, and Flynn's basically saying, "Well, like, what is it? Let me see." And Walter's like, "Just pay attention, just don't give it no mind." And they start driving home, and we kind of see Walter show a different side to Flynn, and he's like, you know what I'd do if I got those kids? I'd tie them up, tie their hands behind their back, and bring them out to the desert, and I would bury them up to their heads, and then I lay fire ants on them.
Yeah.
And it's pretty dark, but Walter Jr. kind of gives it back to him. He's like, "Yeah, like scorpions." Yeah. He's like, and Walter's just like, "Yeah, scorpions." But it's this kind of darker side that Walter shows a little bit, because he's kind of built this confidence in this, I don't know how to say it, but like this alter ego of his, and he's kind of spilling over to his other life per se.
Yeah, he blends it in here and there throughout the show, and this is one of them where he can just do it organically as a joke. But in his heart of hearts, I really don't know if it's a joke, because he's all business now, and he's not afraid to show his true self. It's Dirk, let's our presence be known here.
Mascot baby.
Yeah, pissed off with me not seeing her after being in the kennel all day, but nevertheless. So Walter gets home, and Gretchen is there, and Flynn's introducing himself to her for the first time. They exchange this awkward hug, and Skylar's just like, "Yeah, I was just thanking Gretchen for paying for the treatment," and Walt's like, "Oh yeah, that's great." And she leaves right away when he gets there. It's pretty evident that she's ducking him, and he goes, "Oh, I should probably walk her out to her car," and he kind of chases her down to try to get a word in before she leaves the White House.
Yeah, and as soon as he gets out there, it's evident that she's pissed off, and she's basically like, I don't know what's going on with you, but Walter says, "We need to talk. We need to meet and talk, and I'll try to explain everything to you." And he basically just begs her not to reveal it till then. And Gretchen's like, I don't know, and she basically just leaves.
Yeah, she doesn't give him a definitive answer, so that's got to be uncomfortable for Walter, because she just drives away. But he's clearly worried, because it's gonna be hard to explain that one. To his wife, they're dead broke, and somehow he's paying for cancer treatments. Yeah, he doesn't have a buck naked story to get his way out of that one.
Yeah, and Joe, is it because of this past relationship and this friendship? Is that why you think that Gretchen's kind of still withholding the truth from Skylar?
Yeah, I would say, because I still think they have this little bit of chemistry or a history together that was clearly something special, maybe. And she doesn't want to rat him out right away, but she knows she has power over him too. So maybe it's a little bit of a power dynamic where she still has the upper hand on Walter, throughout all the years of Gray Matter being a success, him being a high school teacher. And now she still has it with having a huge secret, the biggest of his life, hanging over him.
Yeah. I love the blow up scene. Well, we'll see. We'll talk about later on.
Yeah, I love that scene too.
But no, we pivot back to the crack house, and Jesse's still waiting. But finally he hears noise, and we get introduced to two characters that are just beyond nuts, we'll say.
Yeah, so they walk in and they're kicking stuff around, and she's like, I didn't lose it and all this. And Jesse pops up. He throws the kid in the room, says, don't leave. And he hits Spouge in the back of the head with a gun. And he's like, they're yelling. The wife's like, ah! And he's, shut up. And he sits them both on the couch, and he's just like, give me my money. And they're like, yeah, they're like, we don't have your money. We don't have any of your dope, man. Like, we did it all. And he goes, you did it all. An ounce in one night. And they go, yeah, man, it's so good. So he makes them empty their pockets. No dice. Empties their back pockets. They throw them their shoes. Nothing there. And Shay, where do they find the drugs? Which is just so disgusting.
Yeah. So if you're ever thinking about getting to narcotics, and you need a good place to hide, put it up the hooch, put it up the old asshole, because I guess cops are not let's say prone to looking there. But yeah, that's he gets them to take it out, and one has the heroin and one has the meth, and it's a great relationship these two withhold from each other.
Yeah, and he looks at the meth and he goes, where's the rest of it? And Mr. Spouge goes, this skank lost half of it. And she hits him, I ain't no skank. And that's one of her favorite lines we hear in this episode. But there's clearly frustration between these two. They don't have a good relationship, even though they're together. And he's just like, you skank. And she's hitting him back, and Jesse's just trying to keep them calm, and he's trying to figure out how he's going to get his money back, because they don't have it, and they don't have half of his drugs either.
Yeah, exactly. They're pretty broke, so they come up with a solution. But before we get to that, I just brought this up. The second time watching this, you notice things after you watch, giving it a second look, right, Juggy? And Spouge keeps complaining. He's like, I think I got a concussion, man. Like, I need to get to the hospital. And this comes into play later more than I actually thought it would. But yeah, he's just complaining, basically trying to be a baby and get out of it. But it's funny what will happen to another character in the house who gets a similar situation.
Yeah. He's like, I got trauma, man. And, yeah. And, they're both just basically at one point, we'll get there, they complain about not being high enough. Like, I'd be so much more productive if I was high. And they're like,
every addict's go to. Yeah, I'd be better if I was high right now.
Yeah. So Jesse's like, well, how am I going to get my money, you idiots? And Mr. Spouge, he's got a plan. He goes, hey, I got a bank machine in the backyard. And he goes, what? He goes, how's that going to help me? Hey, we bust it open, and you get take all your money back, man, with interest. And he tells him that it was a victimless crime. We go to a montage of the store, and we see the clerk, and he has been shot and or stabbed multiple times. And Spouge, just tells Jesse that they stole it without any problems. Clearly that's not true. These people are murderers.
Yeah, he keeps saying that. He's like, it's a victimless crime. The insurance will cover the ATM machine, so no one gets hurt in this situation. But clearly, he's withholding a little bit of the truth and the fact that they had to kill somebody to get him. But yeah, so that's kind of where it takes over from there. And then I think we pivot back to Walter at this point, and I
Yeah.
believe he's at his meet with Gretchen finally.
Yeah, this is a great scene. So they're at lunch and he says, I don't owe you an explanation. I'll explain it to my family when it's time. I've apologized to you 1, 2, 3 times at this lunch. I'm not telling you how I'm making the money. You don't need to hear that. I appreciate you being in the lie and I apologize for involving you, but you're not going to know how I'm making the money. So don't bother asking, you're not knowing. And he has an attitude, kind of a cavalier attitude with her, and she says, "No, this is not you. Like how are you doing this?" And Walt is quick. He goes, "What the hell would you know about me?" And he, we kind of see their past relationship because she starts to reference, gray matter and what went down between the three of them.
Yeah, and more importantly, what happened between the two of them, because we find out that they were, it's never really noted, but obviously we can tell by their very awkward interactions that these two were in a relationship, and it seemed fairly serious for quite a while.
Yeah.
And she brings it up. She says, you left me, you were at my family's, and I come up and you're packing a bag and you're leaving. And we could kind of don't come out right and say it, Juggy, but you can kind of get the idea that Gretchen and Walter split ways, and it seemed like she navigated towards Elliot, and that's kind of where, and Elliot basically booted Walter out of the business, and that's kind of what you get from this conversation, right? And that's kind of why I took away from it, anyway.
Yeah, I think she leaned towards Elliot, and then Walter was no longer a factor. Just he was more of an awkward nuisance. So they bought him out, and he missed out on millions. And he still clearly he holds his grudges till the end of time, as we see in the show. But he says that you stole millions from him, and Gretchen, she goes, "You're still hanging on to these old grudges. Like, I feel really sorry for you, Walt." And he goes, "Fuck you." And it's an impactful speech, and she just leaves the restaurant. But he went with the conversation the way he wanted. He was not going to be a patsy. He was going to be, the new Cavalier Walter, and he took the chance of, really insulting her, but with potential of Gretchen ratting him out in 5 seconds.
Exactly. That's the big thing here. Like he goes off and pisses her off. Well, what's holding her back from, telling Skylar and Walter Jr. the truth? And it's basically nothing at this point, because, he's pretty much burned the bridge between them, I would say.
100%. I mean, the way he said it, just you can say "fuck you" to somebody, but he meant it. Like he looked at her
like a slow molasses "fu," and as soon as he said it, she got up, walked away, and you could kind of see this look on his face, like mission accomplished. Like, I got what I needed done here.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens after that. But pivoting back to the crack house. So Mr. Spouge, he's hammering on the machine, no effort. So Jessie starts doing it. They're taking turns, but Mr. Spouge falls asleep, and the kid comes out again. Jessie starts playing with him, and they were playing peekaboo, and so they're playing. And while this is happening, old Miss Skank, I'll call her. We never learn her name because we just hear Skank the whole show. She sneaks out from behind Jessie while they're playing peekaboo and knocks him over the head with a bottle, and Jessie's knocked out on the floor.
Yeah, highly unconscious. She runs over to Spouge, basically just wakes him up and says, "I got him, baby, I got him." And and it's at this point where Jessie didn't really believe that maybe a CTE or concussion was a real thing when Spouge had it earlier. He has one now. You can kind of see these effects where He's very woozy. He's kind of seeing in green, say per se, and he's all kinds of messed up. And they got the gun right in his face, and then I'm going to shoot you, but he's got no reaction, which is a telltale sign that he's out of it, and he just kind of lays down and falls back asleep.
Yeah, his eyes are half open the whole time, and he falls back asleep. So while he's asleep, Mr. Spouge tips the bank machine over and leans it on a chair, and he's underneath it because he believes that there's a weak spot in it, and he'll be able to hammer it out, and they'll be able to get the money. And she's kind of leaning over him. She goes, "Baby, I just need one more hit. I just need that one more, and I'll be so good for you." And he goes, "You had your share, and you lost it, you skank." And she goes, "I ain't no skank." And he goes, "Skank, skank, 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 skank." And he keeps saying it. And he goes, "You stupid." He says, "Shut up." He says, and he starts yelling at her, "Skank, skank, skank." Just really being a dick to her, treating her like shit. And she's had it. She's had it with this guy, and she leans away. And one last time he goes, "Skank." And she gets to the top of the machine. She looks and goes, "Baby, I ain't no skank." And she pushes the bank machine on top of his skull and crushing it in the process.
Yeah, it's a very, you can hear the whole effects of it. It really does give you like a big crunch, and then it'll find a little rough at the end. And it's important to note that at this time Jesse's awake, but he's trying to pretend like he's sleeping because he knows that like they still kind of have him, like he's kind of laying on the ground where they're up on him. But yeah, so he kind of witnesses this whole, I guess, scene per se happen, and he's all kinds of messed up afterwards. But at the time, this girl doesn't care. This is what drugs do. They don't, she doesn't care about him, and the fact that she just killed her lover or husband or whatever. And all she does is go pick his pockets, get the drugs, and go shoot up. And that's, and basically calls it a wrap.
Yeah, she shoots up, falls asleep on the couch like nothing has happened. Her dead husband is a foot away, and none's the wiser. Jesse's like shaking completely. I mean, like you said, he's probably got a concussion. He just seen a guy get his skull crushed, and he's just like, "What the hell?" And at the same time, what happens, of course, is the bank machine opens and a bunch of money just starts pouring out. So Jesse's like, "What the hell do I do?" So he starts collecting money because, that was the goal at the begin with. So he starts collecting money through the machine, and he calls 911, which probably wasn't the smartest thing to do at the time, but he calls 911, and he goes into the little kid's bedroom, and he says, "Hey, buddy, can you play peekaboo? Can you do that out there?" And he makes sure the kid has his eyes closed, and he carries him outside so that he does not see any of the remains of his dead father on the floor.
Yeah, and that's this goes back to what we said about Jesse having this maternal well-being. He could have just brought the kid out, or more importantly, he could have just left the kid there, and the kid could have walked out and see this. But he feels like that he owes the kid a duty of making him not see this mess, and he just kind of leaves him outside. He gives him a blanket, and he says, he just looks at him and says, I hope you have a good life.
Yeah, and don't go back in there.
Yeah, then for whatever you do, don't go back in there. The sirens are coming, so that it's probably a matter of minutes before the police are there on scene. And what they're gonna find quite a mess is what they're left with.
Yeah, and I think this showed a lot about Jesse, like we've touched on, and also we will see it later with different relationships that he has with children. But he wanted to do the right thing by the kid. Obviously, this is great for the kid. He's going to get a new life, a fresh start. He had two parents that didn't even really recognize him as their child. I mean, he was just there to serve himself as 3 or 4 years old. And, Jesse, in a way, got what he wanted. He got money. There's a dead guy that we'll see what happens in the next episode when it comes to credit for that kill. And he gets away scot-free without anybody considering him a suspect.
Yeah, no, it you could call it a success, but clearly Jesse call it that in the next
No.
episode as we see.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that kind of wraps up that whole process, and these two crackheads that are just beyond fucked.
Yeah. They both got like, it looks like they got cigarette butts, but it's like
For teeth. Yeah.
from drugs, like even on their faces, like it's all scathed and
Yeah, you get I think you get like super from drugs and stuff. I think your skin gets all effed up and then it gets scabby juggy. I think that's why it's kind of like that, and it's kind of looks like cigarette holes.
yeah, it's gross. So Walter tells off Gretchen, and I think he drove home thinking, I'm fucked. I'm gonna have to explain to Skylar what happened here. And it starts off looking that way because he gets home and she goes, Gretchen called and we need to talk. So they sit down and she reveals that he's sitting there thinking, oh God, what's going to happen? And she says, Gretchen called and revealed to me that they're cutting off the money. They're no longer going to be paying for treatment. And Walter's like, oh, that could have been worse. And
he's not totally out though yet.
No, he's not, because he's still got to pay for it. He's got to come up with a solution, but it could have been worse. And he kind of looks at her and he said, I was with Gretchen tonight, and she didn't want to tell you because she's embarrassed, but they're broke. And she goes, what? He goes, yeah, the economy, like, our situation. And yeah, gray matter, it's in the hole. And he kind of has this smirk on his face when he says it, but Skylar bought it, and she's like, okay, Walter's finally conversing with me. He was with Gretchen tonight. He's telling me the truth. And for once, even though it's a lie, they're kind of on the same page about something.
Yeah. Yeah. The funniest part is she just stops and she goes, Jill drives a Bentley. And Walter just goes, yeah, keeping up with the image.
Yeah.
It's just funny because like he just feeds into this lie, but yeah, give credit to him. He kind of came up with it on his feet, I guess.
Yeah. And like you said, he's still in a pickle here, because if he gets more problems, he's gonna have to go through a second round of treatments, chemotherapy, radiation, but he has time to at least figure out a way. In the past time period, and if she would have said, yeah, we haven't been paying the whole time, he goes home to a wife that's like, okay, you're telling me what the hell you're doing, and he's probably fucked. In this case, he has a little bit of time to at least ponder his future and see what he can do to figure out at least another lie to tell Skylar before the next round of treatments.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but overall, it was a good episode. Unless, was there anything happened after this? Oh yeah.
No, I had that as my that ended that episode for me. It was, yeah, I agree with you. I think it was a great episode. It had everything. It had some action. It had some good plot lines on both sides. You get both characters. Again, Jessie's in the crack house the whole time, so that was interesting. And that leads us into episode 7. That one's called Negro y Azul, which is a different episode, but it starts with a Mexican band singing, and it's kind of updating us, the viewer, on what's happened so far. It's talking about how Heisenberg is the new king drug lord of Albuquerque, how most people are buying the blue meth, they're killing for it even, and that it's crossed the border. It's into El Paso, Texas, where Hank is now located, which we'll get to. But he's becoming a big thing. Nobody knows who he is, but the cartel is starting to notice, and they're getting a little bit pissed off because they're losing business to this new Heisenberg.
Yeah, the song keeps repeating that it doesn't show any respect. He's not showing any respect to the cartel, maybe by paying them off as well.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, unfortunately, at the very end of this music video, we'll call it, is Heisenberg dead, and he's just kind of laying there. And when I say Heisenberg dead, you probably it's just basically a bald white man with glasses and this top hat that Walter wears when he's got his Heisenberg alter ego in the mix. But yeah, that basically sums it up. And this is thinking back to this, Juggy. This was a great episode as a halfway point, because obviously when this aired originally on AMC, this would have been halfway through the season, and then they probably would have took a break and then aired the other 6 episodes after it. So that thinking back on that, this makes for a lot of sense, just to kind of recap what's happened so far, and also state that there's kind of a new enemy that Walter's not really aware of just yet.
Right. Yeah. He's not accounting for potential threats or potential just people that are going to be irritated. And we get into that a little bit in this episode. And that's a really interesting part of the show and where it goes for me. Just him not calculating that, okay, it's not just high school science teachers that are cooking meth. There's other players. But we'll get, I like the way this episode started. It's obviously different, but it's an interesting start nonetheless. So we pivot to Walter in his classroom. He's talking to a student, and student's clearly like this jock idiot, because he's just like, I studied really hard, Mr. White, like, covalent bonds and, just atoms, and I got a 58, like I got pretty close. And he goes, there's no close in science. And he goes, well, do you think you give me a 60? And Walter goes, no, apply yourself, do better next time. And it kind of shows you the kind of teacher he is. He's kind of more of a hard ass. He doesn't give people, a break, so to speak.
Yeah, or at least people he thinks doesn't deserve it.
Right. And I don't think this kid did.
No, this kid, he clearly stated, he goes, yeah, I studied really hard, all, last night.
Yeah.
And like, it is funny because like this kid's clearly not applied, but at the same time, I mean, some teachers would give a kid like that just a break, just because, like he stated, like he's like, oh, I'm gonna have to go to summer school. Mm-hmm. Well, as a kid who's been in summer school myself, not a great time. Yeah. And I would have done anything, for a teacher or prof to give me those extra couple grades too. So I've been there, and it's struggling.
Yeah. My father likes to tell the story about him failing grade 11 twice. If you've never met my father, you'll hear that story about 3 hours into meeting him. Couple summer school runs in there for old DW, but yeah, it's he never got a break either. But I don't think he was the hardest. He didn't study that much, so turnabout's fair play, I guess. So after this kid leaves, Walter, we see that he has a new secret phone, but he's learned from his past mistakes. He's not going to be taking this one home. He keeps it in the ceiling of his classroom, and he's trying to get a hold of Jessie, but he can't. And he's been kind of MIA for days. And Walter decides to drive to Jessie's to hear from him up close and personal.
Yeah, he's there. And if just to recap, Jesse's kind of moved into this new rental property where he lives in a duplex with his landlord / Jane, who we've met, on the other side. And Walter's just kind of banging the door, and basically, how he gets. He's kind of irritated, so he's not letting off. Well, Jane kind of comes out and snaps at him and says, like who are you and what are you doing here? Mm-hmm. And Walter, just an avid liar, just goes, oh, this is my son, Jesse. Yeah. So then she goes, so you're Mr. Jackson? Yeah. and Walter's like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, Walt Jackson. And she goes, well, if you want to see him, yeah, you're gonna have to call him, because clearly he doesn't want to see you. Mm-hmm. And Jesse's listening to this the entire time, and kind of opens the door, and it's like, come on in, Dad. Yeah. And he goes in, and then they have a little conversation.
Yeah. And so they go in there. He doesn't have a bed yet, which is always funny to me. He's got a bunch of blankets on the floor and pillows. So he's sitting there with this massive bong, just smoking. And Walter's like, what the hell happened? And he goes, I listened to you, Mr. White. I took care of it. Don't you remember? And he goes, wait, you took care of it? And he goes, yeah. I went to these crackheads' house, and his crazy wife dropped the bank machine on the bitch's head. And he goes, I can't get it out of my head. And he keeps smoking. And Walt's kind of, he kind of feels for him, but he sees the cash at the same time. So he's pretty perked up. And he goes, well, this is a good thing, Jesse. Like, we got what we wanted. Like, this is going to be good. But Jesse's in a bad way. He can't get the images out of his head. But I'll give Walter credit. He cares for him in this moment. He goes, well, okay, I'll take care of the dead drops. I'll go meet with Badger and Skinny and Combo. You stay here, you get better. And he goes and meets with the dealers.
Yeah. It's also worth noting, like I noticed this, he's having the symptoms of like CTE and like and concussions like symptoms, because he's nauseated. He's thinking about this, and he's basically like, yeah, I'm smoking to help with this nausea. But yeah, and then I have to mention the blowfish jug.
Oh, that's later on though. That's later on. That's the next.
Oh, I thought it was now. Okay, so was he when he goes to visit them later? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
They
So
talk
we'll leave
about
for now.
talk about the different places they can sell. But yeah,
yes,
we'll get to the blowfish. I love that one too. But
yeah.
So
oh, go ahead.
No, so they get, Walt goes and the meet's at a museum, which is always funny to me. You see Skinny and Badger and Combo like looking at things, trying to figure it out. And Skinny thinks he's really smart, but Badger's like, you're an idiot. And Walt just shows up and Badger's like, are you the guy? And Skinny goes, oh yeah, you're the cook, bro. I remember you. And he goes, yeah, you got the money? And he goes, yeah. You can count if you want. We know who we work for, and they're like afraid of him. He just kind of leaves, but it shows that he's got a reputation, that these guys dealing with Jesse. I think there's a bit of fear, but seeing him in person, it was more of a realistic thing. Like, here you go, like, boss, like, don't worry, like, count it, like, it's all there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Like, Jesse's more of a friend to them, where this guy, they don't know him that well.
No.
And they might have heard of the Tuco situation, where he kind of walked into Tuco's compound. Well, he kind of came out unscathed, got his money. Those stories definitely kind of start flinging where they probably shouldn't. And speaking of stories, is kind of this one here, where they're kind of like, oh, so is it true? Did Jesse drop that ATM on Buddy's head? And Walter, typical Walter, he thinks about it. Instead of saying yes or no, well, he's going to think about what's best for him, and I guess the company, will say.
Yeah.
And he goes, you didn't hear it from me. And he kind of just leaves it at that, leaving them to believe that Jesse did kill this man.
Yeah, and he loved hearing that it was all over the street. He goes, yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Smiles as he walks away.
Yeah, he smiles and walks away. So we'll get into how that affects him later, but he's excited about the prospect of this, being a good thing for him and Jesse. Hank, on the other hand, he's in El Paso, and he's not having a good time. He's still really shaken up by the Tuco incident, still dealing with some PTSD there, and not dealing with it. Kind of like Marie at first with the shoplifting. She went and saw Dave. He's not seeing his Dave. He's not talking to anybody. He doesn't talk to Marie about it. He just keeps it all bottled up, which is the worst thing you can do in that scenario. So he doesn't fit in very well. He's talking to guys at the DA office. He's not in on the inside jokes, and he's just kind of a fish out of water, so to speak, because he's used to attack. That's Hank's personality. And we pivot to, them talking to a confidential informant, and it's not the way he does business, so to speak.
Yeah. And I love the art of war scene where the guy is like, yeah, your opponent, basically. He's got this big statue of this drug lord on his desk, and Hank just can't get it over his head. He's like, why do you have that here? And he goes, well, it's the art of war. You got to know your enemy if you're around them all the time. And you're right. Hank talks to this informant, and who's his informant in special cameo but Machete? Who else to play?
Turtle.
Yeah. He goes, my name is Tortuga. You know what that means? I'm slow, but I always win.
Yeah, turtle. Yeah,
So, this
Danny
guy's,
Trejo. I love it.
yeah, no, it's good. And, this, who else, better to play, a Spanish confidant and, a special informant for the feds, but then Machete, one and only.
Yeah, and it's so weird because he's clearly a CI, but he's acting like he's in control. He goes, "I'll give you the information, but give me that catalog." He goes,
Yeah.
"Oh, Derek Jeter signed baseball last season with the Yankees. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take 3 or 4, and I'll take 4 or 5 of these gold rims." And he's going through it. Hank just slams the table and he says, you gonna stop jerking us around and give us some information already?" And like you said, he gives the line of being Tortuga. I'm slow, but I'll get there. And Hank's he's not used to this. And it's almost as if these cops down there are friends with him, and he's a criminal, but they act like he's their best friend, and he's not having any of it.
Yeah, it seems like you got to make these special connections, especially when it comes to the cartel and how they do business, because I think maybe these CIs just mean more to them than they would say back in Albuquerque,
Right.
where things work a little differently, and probably more in Hank's.
Yeah. In Albuquerque, the CI has to comply in order to get a deal. Down here, it's like, okay, give me shit, give me a deal, then I might help you. And he's not used to that. So they go, that's a good scene. We pivot to Skylar, and she's like 7 months pregnant. But they're in a hole. We know their money situation. They're paying for medical bills that they can't afford, and money's tight. The economy. And she's applying for a job at Beneke, which is this company. I think it does like manufacturing and stuff like that. But she's worked there before. She worked there 4 years prior, but she left because of family stuff, and she worked in the accounting department. And we see when she's applying, a lot of the women kind of shame her for being pregnant, and she's not even really being considered for the job. You see the girl at front reception. She goes, "Oh, you worked here before?" "Yeah." When do you do?" "Oh, a couple of months." "Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll let you know." But she knows the owner, Ted, and she asked to see him, and they clearly have a little bit of a history together.
Yeah, this isn't the first time we've seen Ted, because if you can remember, I think it was either the end of last season or maybe the beginning of this one. There's a picture of Skylar and Ted together, and they look, to their credit, they both look very happy, and Ted's very happy to see Skylar.
Yeah.
So he kind of walks in, they make that awkward small talk. Oh, how are your kids? Good. Like how are my kids? And Skylar just kind of goes right to it. Says, "Listen, like, times are tough. Like, I actually didn't come here just for a visit. I came here to get a job." And to Ted's knowledge, he kind of just complies. He's just like, a bookkeeping job. No, that's not going to work. And he's like, "Why don't you take your old job back?" So apparently she was very high up in the accounting department there at one point, before she had to leave.
Yeah. Shout out to you. Accounting world. She back.
Backbone, baby.
She's back, and she's excited. And we do hear through Marie in the next couple of scenes that Ted made a pass at her one time at a Christmas party, drunk. And I don't think Walt knows about this, but she kind of brushed it aside. Skylar was not too concerned about it, but as a man, I'm sure if it was you, if somebody made a pass at Kennedy and you're going to work for him, that would be a bit weird for me. How about you?
Oh, 100%. And I mean, the red flags go off because, you kind of think like, why wouldn't she tell Walter? You know what I mean? That's a pretty big deal, obviously. But the only kind of knowledgeable thing you can think of is, well, maybe she kind of likes him, and maybe, she kind of liked it, even though she wasn't supposed to. She maybe enjoyed that one little pass. What about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think she mentions a bunch of times he's a handsome man, he's a good looking guy. He got divorced, so he's not like he's married anymore. So there's a lot of red flags here, but she's just, he kind of asks about it, and he mentions at breakfast, like, you're pregnant, this and that. And he goes, no, like, I would be sitting at a desk all day. The doctor said I can work until I'm done. And he just kind of he's got to let her go because he's done so much bad stuff to have no real say to say, I don't think it's a good idea, Skylar.
Yeah. And in the back of my mind, when I'm thinking about this, well, if she gets a job, it's kind of, Walter gets a little bit more freedom, if she's home, well, she can keep track of him and keep tabs on him constantly. But if she's at a job somewhere, well, Walter's kind of free to go cook if he wants to, or take care of business, kind of willy-nilly. So even though it maybe not the best thing, it kind of works out in his favor a little bit.
Yeah, professionally better for him, personally clearly bad, but he really doesn't know the extent of the personal
exactly
conflict that it could lead to. So this is the blowfish scene. Walter brings a map to Jessie's, and he says, we need to expand our territory, and we're only selling here. And he points out on the map, and he goes, look at all these different spots we could be selling to. And he goes, Jessie, they know that you killed that guy with the bank machine. It's on the street. Skinny and them told me. People are afraid of you. And Jessie's just kind of like, he goes, Mr. White, this is not a good idea. Because if we start selling on other people's territory, they're going to clap back at us. And he goes, you know nothing about this. I do. Like, this is not a good idea. But like you said, Walter is self-interested, and he doesn't care about potential liability to a dealer that he has no relationship with. He goes, Jessie, you know what you are? You're a blowfish. And you can take it from there.
Yeah, he basically is like, Jesse, he's on the ground, but Walter's on all fours. He's basically talking to him. He's like, you're a blowfish. Like, you're kind of weak. You're not high up on the food chain.
Mm-hmm.
But when you feel threatened, what do? Jesse's just like, I don't know. And Walter says, you expand, and you get big, and you scare away the other fish.
Yeah.
And that's all you have to do. And he's like, you're a blowfish. Say it with me. Jesse goes, I'm a blowfish. Walter goes, say it with me. You're a blowfish. Jesse goes, I'm a blowfish.
Yeah. Yeah, bitch. And
Jesse probably knowing what a blowfish is. I don't even think he really realized that he was kind of being insulted at a little bit at the same time. But that's kind of the relationship these two have.
Yeah. And he's clearly manipulating him, but he's bought in. He kind of likes the idea of being a bit powerful, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He likes that. And he goes, yeah, let's do this, Mr. So we'll get into there's a quick scene between Jessie and Jane where she's outside drawing. We know Jessie likes to draw. We see pictures of his old books at his old house. They bond. She works at a tattoo shop, which is cool. And there's a biker, and he stops at the stop sign. He goes, hey, you're Pinkman. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, keep it real, man. Drives away. And she looks at him and says, I thought your last name was Jackson. And he walks away without really telling her anything.
Yeah, it kind of leaves it unknown. But no, we I think at this point we pivot back to Hank, right?
Or yeah, this is a tough scene to watch.
Yeah.
So they're in the desert. Hank's got the binoculars. He's laying in the sand. Like this is the middle of the desert, and they're waiting for Tortuga, turtle. And the other DEA officers are making fun of him because he doesn't know Spanish. He doesn't understand their customs. He's kind of aloof. He's like, you guys talking about something that I don't know? And they goes, no, we're just really impressed by you and your acumen and all this. And he's like, whatever. So he's laying in the sand, and he sees in the distance the head of Tortuga. So he goes, I think I see your boy. So they hop in the Escalades and drive up, and we see old Danny Trejo's head, aka Tortuga, on a literal turtle.
Yeah. And written on the side, it goes Ola DEA.
Yeah.
So it just kind of shows that the cartel, they're one step ahead of the DEA. And, they know exactly where they are, probably know exactly what they're doing. And Hank doesn't like the scene, and he kind of runs back to the truck, and the rest of the officers there laughing at him. They're like, "Yo, you never seen a severed head on a turtle before, Mr. Schrader?" And what happens? The turtle blows up into smithereens, and afterwards, it's a gruesome scene. Probably made some people's stomachs quiver a little bit.
So, it's just this huge scene, and you hear like the after effects of a bomb in movies. You see that people are just ringing noise, and
Yeah.
you hear screams from people, a lot of dead bodies, and kind of the main DEA guy. He's lost a leg, and Hank runs to him and applies like a tourniquet and to try to save the limb, basically. But you see like the remains of his leg, and it's as you know, Shay, I'm not real good with no body parts. Soul Surfer is one of the scariest movies to me. Again, that's not a very scary movie, but the body parts freak me out.
Limbs. I know this was a tough one for you because limbs are not
No limbs.
are not your
Yeah, that
specialty.
freaking Super Bowl commercial that time. Jesus, I'll never get over that one. So he's already got all this messed up in his head, and he has to apply a tourniquet. And most of the officers are dead. And Hank he only lived because he had this prior trauma. If he was right-minded, he's probably laughing with the boys.
Yeah. And when you think about this too, it's not a timed hit. This was clearly a detonated hit that the DEA were watching them, and they were probably trying to wait till they gathered enough DEA soldiers around, and then the cartel kind of just went off and took out as many as they can. And we're just kind of seeping in here. We haven't seen a whole lot of it yet, but how powerful and how much they kind of run everything. Actually, bringing it up just in a real life scenario, there was a mayor who was running as candidate for one of the cities within Mexico, and something about her Facebook Live shared her location, and the cartel actually went there and they took her out. They killed her. And this is just that, that's real life. So imagine what you could do with a show that's just based off of whatever you want it to be.
Right. Even back in the day, Pablo Escobar was running to be the president of Cuba, like a drug dealer. One of the probably the biggest drug lord in the history of the world. Shay, just when it comes to real life in the cocaine trade, he was almost president of a country, and his only business was selling cocaine. It's crazy. That this happened, that this happens in real life. So, this is a fictional show, but it can be really applied to real life scenarios. And that's clearly one of them, like you mentioned with the woman going down, running for office. So at the end of the episode, Jesse meets with Combo, Badger, Skinny. He tells them that they're expanding. He wants them to hire some new dealers. They're going to be expanding, going farther. And even Walter says, we're going to be raising our prices. We've cornered the market. Now we raise the price and we strike while we can. And they're clearly got a plan of attack, and it's to, take over Albuquerque, kind of like the Mexican singers were saying at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, no respect. They said no respect. But it's at this time I think we kind of pivot towards the end of the show, and Jesse, it's this funny scene where Jesse's waiting. He's sitting there having a beer, and he's hooking up his TV, and he's waiting for Jane to get home. And Jane gets home, and he kind of, because their houses are obviously together, I guess there's this one unit. He's listening to her, and she goes outside and has a cig, and Jesse goes out and somewhat apologizes. I would say it says, my name's not really Jesse Jackson, it's Jesse Pinkman. and basically says, I don't kick me out. Like I really, really, really like this place, and I'll let you take it over.
Yeah, and he says that Walter is not his father. He's completely honest with her, and it's refreshing because it's so anti-Walter. Because Jesse's he's honest to a fault sometimes, but she's like, okay, it's okay. And he goes, I'm setting up my Wicked TV, satellite. Do you want to come in and watch with me? And she goes in there on 2 folding lawn chairs, which is funny, in the middle of their living room. And he goes, this sucks. I don't know why it's taking so long. And it's kind of this awkward silence. But as the episode cuts to an end, she reaches her hand out and grabs his, and they kind of share this intimate hand-holding moment as the scene cuts to black.
Yeah, no, it's you're first watching this, and you feel like Jane's a little intrigued by Jessie, but you don't really feel like she maybe has feelings for him. But this is the first time we see that there's more interest to Jane than we believe. I think she sees Jessie as kind of this I don't know, either wild cartoon character or kind of this mystery man. She doesn't really know a whole lot about him, doesn't know what he does, but Jessie's got something going with her at least.
Yeah, he's an unknown, and we don't know a lot about her yet. We will, but she clearly has a kindred spirit similar to Jessie, and she kind of wants to explore that a little bit. So that ends episode 6 and episode 7. This is, like you said, it's kind of the halfway point of the season, and it gets really good from here. I think it's been a solid season so far, but the next couple episodes are dynamite. Episode 8 titled "Better Call Saul." We get to meet Bob Odenkirk, and just a fantastic actor, and just him, what he brings to the show is just with the comic relief and just the way he acts. I love it. So it's great to see him. And we get into a lot of different stuff, like you said, with the cartel starting to show up, Hank going back and forth. So the back half of the season is really, really interesting.
Yeah, I think it does a great job. This episode, being 7, does a great job of setting up for what's left to be, because you see the expansion going on with Walter and Jessie. You see some unhinged tension going on between Ted and Skyler, but you also see that the cartel, they got it out for Heisenberg, which they don't really know who Heisenberg is yet, but obviously there's more to come for sure in the next few episodes. And you're right, the next episode's it's a banger, and it's probably one of the best of the season.
I love anytime we get to see Bob Odenkirk on the screen, especially as Saul. We'll dive into him next week and kind of his operation, but he's fantastic. But yeah, what you got your, I know Leafs are out. Obviously, that's a sore spot for you. Montreal's
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Montreal's into the conference final. Get to the pills for you, but I know you've kind of jumped on the Carolina Hurricanes bandwagon, and they got their game starting up here in a couple of minutes. How are you feeling about their chances of surviving elimination tonight against the defending Stanley Cup champions?
If there's one coach that could motivate this team for a 2-game rally to win tonight and on Thursday night, it's Rod the Bod Brindamore. This guy, he just brings it. He's got intensity. You love to see it on the bench. I love watching them solely the fact because he runs a bench really well, but his team loves playing for him. Yep. They buy into what he's selling. So I love it. Not having, I think Vinny Trocheck is he done, or
him and Niederreiter
he's playing
in tonight.
Oh, okay. So yeah, they're pulling out of the stops here. So I'm confident they get it done. You gotta shut down that brick wall named Vasilevsky and that, but it's not. It's not outdoing. What are your thoughts? You gotta score for me. You think
they gotta stay out of the box. That's the main thing. Because Tampa's power play, it might be the best power play I've ever seen. Jesus, like it's got no weaknesses. And Kucherov, having not played all year, I can't tell because the guy's just doing incredible things. But I kind of, Tampa lost game 5 to Florida. And I think they'll do it again tonight. I think
Yeah, they think they break.
Carolina will find a way to win tonight. I got too much respect for, you mentioned Brandon Moore and guys like Slavin and Pesci have been playing really well. And if Vinny and Nino can at least pull, they're definitely not 100%, but provide a little bit of a spark. I like Carolina's chances. And how about I'll say Carolina 4-2 with empty net.
4-2. Okay. All right.
How
I'm
about
thinking it's a 4. I think it's another tight one. I'm thinking 4-3. I'm thinking OT.
OT?
I think it's going OT tonight. If and we got any gamblers out there, you heard it here first. Unfortunately, you're probably not gonna have any time to do it because the game's probably already on. But yeah.
Well, you can hammer if it goes to OT, you can pick the OT winner.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I'm gonna take Carolina.
Hammer Vinny Trocheck overtime. How about in the late game? Who do you like tonight? Big game 5, huge game tonight between
I don't know.
the Knights and the Avalanche of Colorado.
Man, games 2 to 4 have been all Vegas.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna. I don't know if I think I gotta stick with a hot hand. I think Vegas is taking it again. I think I think they came in so tired and lazy in that game 1, and they just needed that little snap in the neck, and they're off. They're like a racehorse. They're off. I don't know if they can slow them down. Fleury's playing great.
Yeah.
They're big boys all showing up. Stone's playing good, and if their depth scoring gets going, I don't know if Colorado can handle, because Colorado's they look like a shell of the team they were in the first round.
Yeah. Yeah, Colorado better win tonight, because if they don't win tonight, it's over in game 6.
I feel the same way.
It's a wrap. They can not go. They can pack their bags on their trip to Aruba, because they're not fucking going. They're not going on. But first 10 minutes will mean a lot tonight to see how, because like you said, the last 3 games, Vegas has just come out of the gates just storming. Colorado scored in the first 2 minutes of game 4, but after they scored, it was all Vegas. Marchessault and Carlson just on them like, dogs, just chasing pucks. That line's found it again. They look like the 2018 version of that line. Marchessault, people cannot like him because I like the way he plays.
I drew him. Why don't people like him, Juggy? I never heard this before.
Because he's a little gritty, and he's a little, he's got a little Brad Marchand to him, I think.
Oh, okay.
But Brad Marchand's a pretty clutch playoff player too. So, you gotta respect guys that produce at this time of the year, and I think Marchessault is one of those guys. And he's a 50-point, 60-point guy. When you get into the playoffs, he'll start scoring some big goals for you and show up in the big moments.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Grabbing Braden McNabb back, what a energy guy that guy is. He finishes checks. He's your player. He's gritty. So I know you love watching him in the lineup. And
I do. I do love myself some Braden McNabb. Great selection. That was an expansion draft guy that's still on the roster. So I like to see that too. The OGs kicking around in Vegas.
Yeah.
But what do you got to go the rest of the week for you? What's the week look like?
I think we're gonna have some sun. So I think a couple patio beers, maybe in the lineup. But I could also my girlfriend's getting those wisdom teeth out, so I know she's gonna be babying that a little bit. But no, just still chill in the sun. No golf this weekend. The course I played at last weekend, I think I almost lost both my ears to bug bites. So I'm gonna stay away from the links for a little while. But other than that, not a whole lot. What about you? What are you popping? Heard you have a little visitor coming to town.
Yeah, I got an old critter there, Aaron Brown. He's gonna be coming down there Saturday morning. So that little cat will be poking around. But
what are you guys doing?
Probably just give out tickets to church or something.
I was gonna say Bible readings. That seems like
Bible study or
you maybe go to an orphanage, maybe some kids, help out there maybe.
Pep rally, support the kids or whatever they're doing these days. No, we'll probably have a couple claws, as I had one tonight on the podcast here, White Claw.
Sponsored by White Claw.
I'm hoping for a sponsorship. Sponsored by White Claw. But a little natural lime tonight. Nice night, but we'll probably have a couple drinks, and who knows? Maybe we'll have a game 7 that night because
Boston.
Potentially could be Colorado Vegas game 7.
Oh yeah.
Potentially
Yeah,
could
you're
be
right.
your Canes coming all the way back. Game 7, home ice
Love to see it.
Saturday. And then also Saturday night, there's a UFC pay-per-view. So maybe we'll get into that as well. So
we better have a pod before that about UFC. I want to hear another one.
yeah, I plan on doing that this week. So we'll be getting into that for sure. But no, good pod tonight, man. Fun as always, and we'll be back next week to talk about Better Call Saul.
Yes, sir.
Everybody, enjoy the heat while it's here. Stay safe as always, and we'll talk soon.